Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we're diving into the arrest affidavit of Christopher, the man who was charged with capital murder in the death of the pregnant teenager Savannah Soto. And so Christopher, he has been, it's not looking good for Mr. Christopher Ray Preciado. Okay, so we're going to do a deep dive into this arrest affidavit. What do they have on them? How did they lead there? Where did the phone play that role in helping them lead to the investigators? And so the arrest affidavit is what they had to get signed in order to be able to arrest them. So let's go ahead and dive into what we know at this time. We're diving into the affidavit for arrest warrant. Down in the state of Texas, the county of Bexar. Thank you for whoever corrected me on that. And so Detective Jeremy Goodwin, who played a big part, he's a peace officer in the state of Texas. And so he created this affidavit in order to get the arrest. And right out of the gate, you can see the victim in the case has been identified as Savannah Nicole Soto. Date of birth, August 22nd, 2005. Rest in peace, Savannah Soto. And notice that it's spelled with one N. It's kind of mind-blowing, at least to me, that so many people are spelling it with two N's. It's that much of a common that it's actually spelled with two N's, like all over the search engines as well, all catering to the two N's. But as you can see right here, Savannah with one N, Nicole Soto. And Nicole died way too young, big time. The other victim in the case has been identified as Matthew Gabriel Guerra. Date of birth, October 26, 2001. And so in this act, Christopher Ray Preciado said to have actually done the murder on his own, but he is not the only one that's arrested because his dad was arrested for trying to protect him and helping him try to get rid of the evidence. And so he too has been arrested and even having more charges. First, let's do a deep dive into this arrest affidavit, and then we'll dive into what else we know at this time, right? And so one thing we know is that Savannah did not deserve this. On December 23rd, 2023, Leon Valley Police, they received a call for a missing person report. And so the family of the missing person, which was her parents, her mom, Savannah's mom, and they stated that she was supposed to be induced for her pregnancy and did not show up for her appointment. The family said that they had not been able to get a hold of her for a while. They were looking all over for her. They were trying to call her. And so they couldn't get a hold of Savannah. And they stated that she was not answering her phone. And so a check of the hospitals was conducted. They went there like, hey, you're supposed to be induced. Where are you? We're worried. They were worried. And it was found that the female was not at any of the hospitals. And it was also found that the female lived with her boyfriend. However, the family of the boyfriend, they also said they were not able to get in touch with him as well. And so Savannah, she was entered as a missing person by Leon Valley. Okay. And again, we're following along with the arrest affidavit, and maybe I'm sharing with you what's in it, as well as I'm sharing, maybe a little ad lib in the middle of it, so I'm not repeating every single thing over the way they may do sometimes. And so I hope there's no feedback. And with that, they went into full missing person mode. It became a national story, actually, until when they hear a young teenager about to be induced disappears. everyone's worried, right? And so please let me know in the comments if there's any feedback, because I will have to stop this. I don't understand why they're even, but I hear my voice on that thing. But in this case, as we're diving into it, right out of the gate, it's like they were like, okay, this does not sound right. And so further investigation, it found that the female and her boyfriend, they were not responding to any phone calls, and their whereabouts were unknown. No one knew where they were. Media broadcasts on the news the story of the missing female, pregnant teenager who went missing, and her boyfriend. In the media, the boyfriend's car description was broadcast in the media, and it was said to be a 2013 gray Kia Optima. And in that, it's like, okay, we also heard from the Matthew side of the family that there was actually he drove a Mercedes or something. I don't understand why that was ever said. But again, we know that he had a lot of dealings, a lot of money, a lot of side hustle stuff that helped them generate a lot of cash. And so maybe one of his vehicles is a Mercedes and his parents or his family or whoever thought it was in there. I'm just guessing, right? But Savannah's mom, she was worried. Everyone was worried. You're about to go into labor, right? And so they were looking all over for the gray Kia Optima. And that's when it's like, okay, during the process, they would later find it, but we'll dive into that. But in the meantime, on December 26, 2023, the day after Christmas, a resident of 5903 was sharing that, okay, I think we found a car over here. Okay, and so this person, a resident of 5903 Danny K Drive, messaged the family of the female and advised them that they believe that the vehicle that they're looking for was parked here at 5903 Danny K Drive. And so the family right away contacted Leon Valley and drove to the location. Some people got there before the police got there. Again, everyone was in panic mode already because she was supposed to be induced. And so that's when it's like, hey, we spot this vehicle and it looks like the one you guys are looking for. It looks like Matthews. Upon Leon Valley Police arriving to the location, Leon Valley Police, they observed the vehicle. And so they noticed right away inside the vehicle was a deceased pregnant female in the front seat and a deceased male in the back seat of the vehicle. Now, if you recall, that before even police said much on that, a lot of people did share that part. They all, we'll see here in a second, but they're also talked about how he was found. Don't know if we're going to learn about all that, but we do know it was a drug deal gone bad. And so as we dive deeper into this, Leon Valley Police, they get there and they see the pregnant female in the front seat and Matthew in the back seat. And so they knew right away, this is terrible. San Antonio police were then contacted. And so the detective, he gets there and he sees the vehicle. It's the 2013 Kia Optima with a Texas license plate. And so he checks the VIN number, and the VIN number was the same VIN that was actually broadcast on the news for the missing couple. And so they knew, we're on the track and it looks like it might be them. A check of the information through their database showed that the vehicle belonged to the boyfriend, Matthew Guetta of Savannah. And so the detective, now again, the detective in this case is Jeremy Goodwin. He's the one that's writing up this affidavit. And so when I'm talking about the detective, I'm talking about Detective Goodwin. And so detective, he says that, he sees that the front side passenger side of the vehicle, he notices it has the deceased pregnant female inside of the front right passenger seat. Due to his knowledge of the female on a previous murder case from her brother, okay? Because they observe this part. And so right away he recognized that this was her. And you can see right there that due to your affiant, which is him, the detective, if you can see where my mouse is up above my head a little bit, due to the detective's knowledge of the female Savannah Soto on a previous murder case, and it gives the murder case number of San Antonio Police Department. Again, Ethan Soto was murdered. Another drug deal problem that went like some stolen drugs or robbery gone bad, something along those lines. And then in the court, Savannah's brother and stepbrothers all attacked the suspect, the person who was found guilty in that case. And so they all attack him and beat him senseless. And so he says right here, due to this previous knowledge of Savannah Soto, I knew it was her. And he says he recognizes her to be that of the missing female, Savannah Soto. And it says right here, the female appeared to have trauma to her head. Rest in peace to that young teenager who did not get a chance to really get her life straight. Because truth is, sounds like she was into some negative stuff too, along with Matthew. You know, I don't know the extent of it. I'm not even trying to judge. I just know this should not have happened to her. And little baby Fabian deserves justice. Bundle, a stack of cash. So there's still more. But a 19-year-old Christopher is 19 himself. He's the same age as Savannah, younger than Matthew. Okay, Matthew is the oldest of everyone involved. Baby Fabian is the youngest of everyone involved. We cannot forget little baby Fabian. to me, he deserves the most justice of everyone involved, and all three of them deserve justice. All of them. Little baby Fabian did not get a chance. That is heart-wrenching. And while waiting for the search, they're going to interrogate everybody. They're going to talk to Savannah's side of the family. They're going to talk to Matthew's side of the family. They're going to do everything they can to figure out what happened to these three. And so they're doing their due diligence in this matter, right? And so in the process, they're going even further into it. And they're finding out that, like, okay, Matthew, he was doing some crazy stuff in his personal life. And it was said that the boyfriend would post money and narcotics. And so everyone would see that. And so that would lead people to want to rob him. And they would even say that, the boyfriend had actually been shot before. I didn't know that. Or had been shot at before. I didn't know that. This is the first time I'm hearing about it, right? Again, I didn't dive into every single video that went out there because you never know who just talking for clout. So I wait for a lot of stuff to get in the media. Then I dig deeper into that little piece of information. And so the people wanted to rob Matthew, and it was stated that the boyfriend had been shot at before. So this was actually new information in reference. And through that, it's like that's when there's a little baby that hadn't been born that was supposed to be induced. And, then you had the two adults, which she's 19, even though teen is in that word. I guess she's still kind of considered an adult, but very young adult. And during further investigation, of course, they're going to find a lot more. And so the search found spent shell casing in the vehicle. There was no weapon that was recovered in the vehicle. There was a blood transfer on the outside of the vehicle that was not consistent with the boyfriend causing harm to the female. So right out of the gate, they knew, okay, he didn't do this to her. This is not a murder-suicide. Both the female and the male, they both had gunshot wounds to the head, and the male also had an apparent drag mark on his back into the vehicle. Okay, so he was shot outside of the vehicle. And with that is like both the female and the male had gunshot wounds to the head, and the male also had apparent drag marks, but it's believed that the female and male were both killed at a different location, and the vehicle was then driven to this location, which is where you also see the surveillance footage. Okay, and through that, it's like, okay, that's when dad and son meet up. But during further investigation, the detective found this video surveillance at 5903 Danny K. Again, close to where they were about to drop the car off. And he's probably picking them up. The video surveillance was found that on December 21st, 2023, at around 23:59, right before midnight, a Chevy Silverado gray, the gray driving with its lights off from the vehicle recovery location. With this timestamp, there is a little bit of discrepancy on the December 21st, on the December 22nd stuff. Humans, nature can make mistakes, but we don't know all the details. But what I'm finding from this affidavit is that they were killed shortly before the clock turned midnight. That's what was originally reported that I started buying into. But the Chevrolet Silverado, it didn't even have its lights off from the vehicle, that location that it was recovered at. And so the Silverado, it pulled in the middle of the back parking lot and parked the vehicle. That's what they noticed on this. And they also noticed that, let me show you guys with this. See if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. And so you can see for yourself as we're going through some of this. Obviously, I'm ad-libbing some of the middle and butchering some of it. I'm sorry. But, you know, you can see where it shares that the Silverado, it pulls into the middle of the back parking lot and parks the vehicle. All right. The victim's vehicle, which is the car, not the truck, the car, it could be seen approaching the Silverado. All right. Now, we come to find out actually it was probably a black Silverado, not a gray Silverado. But at that time, they thought it was a gray when he wrote this up. And then the victim's vehicle parks next to that Chevy. Right? This is when they approach each other and they're, you know, talking, getting their plan together. And so the victim's vehicle parks next to the Silverado. That's when the heavy-set male exits the Silverado and the driver's side door of the victim's vehicle opens up. Okay? And that's when they talk to each other. Right? See, the door opens up. Right now, both doors are open up. Okay? And the heavyset male is the dad of Christopher. The heavyset male is the one that owns that truck. And so he approaches the driver of the victim's vehicle and appeared to speak to the driver. The heavyset male then gets a towel from his vehicle and appears to wipe down the outside of the victim's door where he had touched the vehicle to get rid of any of his fingerprints. You see, he has a towel right now and he's wiping it down because he touched it when he helped open up that door. Okay. And so the driver of the victim's vehicle, again, the silver one, okay, he exits the vehicle for a brief moment and sat back in the driver's seat. And with that, you can even see because he kind of gets out a little bit. And this is where, you know, some of the internet sleuths, they saw long hair and they're like, is it a female? Well, Christopher did have long hair. He did have long hair. So there was actually some validness to the long hair part. All right. But he sits right back into the driver's seat. And so the driver did not match the description of Savannah, did not match the description of Matthew. So they know at that time. The chilling part is that both Matthew and Savannah are not alive in that vehicle. That's just that we come to find out. And so the Hispanic male got back into the vehicle. Obviously, now we know they're both Hispanic males because they're both father and son. And the victim's vehicle drove behind the building where the vehicle was found on December 26th. Did you hear that? So basically, they're going right behind that location you just saw, right behind where he would drop off the silver car with the 2 victims in it, with the 3 victims in it. I should be more clear. My apologies to baby Fabian. And that's when they move. Then we come to find out that this guy, Christopher, might have been in some of these internet forums, right? But following all along on everything that people's talking about, all the misinformation and some of the accurate information. And through that, you know, that's when they leave the victim's car right there where it was later found. And the victim's vehicle did not leave that location until they move it on December 26th after finding the 3 bodies. And so, as shared by the detectives, it was believed that the victims were already deceased at the time of the video that they observed. It is believed the unknown driver and heavy-set male are observed parking victims' vehicles at the location in an effort to hide the vehicle. Did they really think that was going to work? And so through this is like, that's why I never understand why some people think this way. On January 2nd, that's when the detective provided one of the victim's cell phones to Detective Knox at the Technical Investigation Unit. The next day, January 3rd, the detective receives a phone download from Detective Knox. Okay. And that's when the detective, Goodwin, he found that the victim had recently searched the street of Charlie Chan Drive. All right. So again, this was Savannah's phone. And so Savannah had done a search for Charlie Chan Drive. And due to Detective Goodwin's knowledge of the crime scene, the detective was aware that Charlie Chan Drive was actually a couple of blocks away from the victim vehicle recovery location. All right. The Detective Goodwin, he was able to discover that the victim's vehicle, it actually pinged near Charlie Chan Drive and Cary Grant Drive around 23:50 hours. Okay, that is at 11:50. All right, on the night that they went missing. Okay, and so the vehicle, it did not start moving again until around 23:54 hours, which was about 4 minutes later. And so then the vehicle, it travels to 5903 Danny K Drive, and that is where the victims and their vehicle was discovered on December 26, 2023. So Detective Goodwin, he conducts a computer research and he's able to locate a vehicle that looked identical to the suspect vehicle that was seen on camera, the black truck. Okay, the Google image, it's even a Google Earth image of their black truck. You can see it in yesterday's recap of what we found after the arrest. But the homicide detectives, they're doing all their research, right? But through this, they're like, okay, wait a second, this vehicle matches. And so then they do a research on the owner of that vehicle, and they found that the owner of the vehicle matches the description of the male that exits the vehicle on camera, the really big guy, Ramon Preciado. And so homicide detectives, of course, they're on their way to talk to them. Okay, and so they go to the vehicle location that's listed on this affidavit, and they found that the listed vehicle was at the location. So while at the residence on Charlie Chan, that person identified as Ramon Preciado, he reported knowing why the SAPD, San Antonio PD, was at his residence. Ramon, he informed the San Antonio police detectives to speak with his son, Christopher Preciado. Ramon and Christopher were then transported to the homicide unit to speak with Detective Goodwin. Okay, and so while additional detectives, they searched the residence on Charlie Chan Drive under this search warrant, which again is the home of Ramon and Christopher. And so Ramon right away, he's like, I didn't do any killing. He even sells them. Because the guy's like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? And the guy's like, he even tells him, as you just even saw, why you lie, something along those lines, right? It's more because it's my son that actually did it, but he didn't say that much. And so, they go and they do all their search. And so the Detective Goodwin, he speaks with Ramon after Ramon was read the Miranda warnings, right? And he admitted to driving his Chevrolet Silverado to the Danny K Drive where he meets his son, Christopher. Okay. Now, Ramon, he identified himself on surveillance video, and he says, yes, that's me from that surveillance video. Again, we're talking about the one when they were asking for any information. And so they show him this video and he says, yes, that big dude in the tank top with the big belly hanging out is really me. I admit to it. But he tells him, I didn't do the shooting. Okay. And so he says, I met Christopher at that apartment complex who was driving the silver car, the Kia Optima. Okay. And so this is the vehicle in which Matthew Guerra and Savannah Soto were found deceased. And Ramon, he admitted to assisting Christopher at the 5903 Danny K Drive location. And Ramon, he knowingly treated the human corpse of Matthew Guerra, Savannah Soto, and the unborn child, little baby Fabian, in an offensive manner by leaving them in the abandoned vehicle, knowing that they were there. Okay, and picking up Christopher, knowing that they were there. And that's why he has also those charges, because of his role in this little moment that would also change his life. He was trying to protect his son. As we've seen on X.com, that people will actually protect their own children. Some people will admit it. At least I saw that in the surveys. There's no way I could do that, but that it is what it is. Some people can actually do that. And so then Detective Goodwin speaks with Christopher Preciado after Christopher was read his Miranda rights, right? And so Christopher, he reported that Matthew Guerra and Savannah Soto were, he knew them. He knew what was going on. And so he shares that he knew them, and he reports that Matthew and Savannah drove to his residence on Charlie Chan Drive to sell Christopher marijuana. And Christopher went on to provide a version of events that were inconsistent, because he says something along the lines that Matthew pulls out a gun or something along the lines. He's trying to, play it as self-defense, but as he says, it was inconsistent with the evidence that they collected at the scene and from the victim's recovered vehicle. So his lie did not play out, and they were not buying it for 1 second, because these guys did the unthinkable. Now, Christopher, it's like he could spin any story he wants, but it was obviously something went wrong. And Christopher, he went on to provide a version of events that were, again, inconsistent with what they had. So they knew Christopher was lying, but he claimed that the male victim pointed a gun at him, and Christopher was able to manipulate the weapon, resulting in the female being shot. Right? That's what he told the detectives, which he wasn't buying one bit. But Christopher stated that he had the weapon pointed at him again, and he manipulated, which means he took the gun away and he was playing superhero, I'm gonna save my life or whatever, and change whatever, but it just didn't line up. And so he says he again resulted in the male being shot, which is Matthew himself. But again, Detective Goodwin says those statements are inconsistent with the gunshot wounds that Matthew and Savannah had suffered, and little baby Fabian, and that the evidence located at the crime scene spoke a different language than what he was spitting out to them. And Christopher, he intentionally shot his firearm at Savannah and Matthew and little baby Fabian with the intention of causing their death. And the actions of Christopher resulted in the death of Matthew, Savannah, and Savannah's unborn child, baby Fabian. And that's where Detective Goodwin says he believed that, the defendant Christopher Ray Preciado, on or about the 21st day of December 23rd in Bexar County, Texas, intentionally killed multiple people. And when we stop and we think about crazy stories, this is definitely at the top of the list. And truth is, at the end of the day, these kids did not deserve that. I'm close to 50. I guess 22 to me is still like, you're a kid. Yeah. He had an opportunity as long as he was alive to try to right his wrongs and better his life for little baby Fabian. We don't know if that would have happened. Christopher decided to take it upon himself to make sure it doesn't happen. Why? Hopefully we find out more, but we may not find out more. At the end of the day, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help get the word out about these victims losing their life for no good reason and baby Fabian deserving a voice. And at the end of the day, I want to keep you aware of what could go wrong in this crazy world that we live in, because truth is, the more alert, maybe the more careful, maybe the more safer, maybe not. You never know, but try to understand that in a blink of an eye, a flip of a finger, your life can change. So do your best to be aware, be alert, be careful, and know anything can happen. So be careful. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Until next time, my friends, peace. Have a great one.